So at this point, we are going to bring up our Director of Benefits, the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, coming up here to walk us through benefits and ACA compliance here at year end. So let's hear it for Frank Thomas.
Thank you. There might be a reason we have a anti-stress presentation before the word ACA compliance. Today, I am a member of the benefits team. Joining us are a few of our team members. You will be working with for ACA if you are using our ACA compliance services. One of our team members, our Richmond-based benefits specialists are AJ Johnson, Alex, Ashley Smart, Aaron Carlson, Jonah Lampkin, and Josh Orange. Hopefully those names are familiar to you. We try to keep continuity year to year, having an assigned benefits specialist, so it's a little bit easier. So what we're going to learn about today is what's new in ACA. I want to share with you the reporting deadlines that we are requesting. We'll do a quick recap of how to audit your information, so as you get to those deadlines, it's not stressful. There also will be a little bit of information I'll share regarding what if you don't do your ACA compliance correctly, and what to expect from that from the IRS, and share some resources and tools. So, show of hands. How many folks here know they need to comply with ACA? How many of folks are using our service currently? Good number. So that means there's a bunch of you that are not sure or are using another service. And it's totally fine to do your own ACA reporting if you have a different benefits module, benefits advisor who's providing that service for you. If you are unsure, I'll just review a little bit in terms of the requirements. The IRS requires an applicable large employer by definition that has over 50 full-time or full-time equivalent employees to offer affordable coverage. And as part of that offer of affordable coverage, there has to be some tracking reporting because if the coverage was not offered and it was not affordable, the employer is subject to employer shared responsibility penalties. So this can get a little tricky because some of our clients have multiple entities. And if you have multiple entities, each entity is not treated separately. If there's common ownership, they have to be aggregated together for those counts. We can assist you with reporting if you're unsure how many full-time equivalents you have. But if you have entities that are using another solution, maybe processing in a different part of the country and so forth, you have to understand what their employee counts to know if you are required to file. The calculation to determine who is a full-time, essentially the IRS is saying 30 or more hours worked in a week by a part-time employee is considered full-time. So not the coding if you say they're full-time or part-time, but how many hours did they work? And there's a, for offering coverage, you're allowed to have a measurement period. It's typically an annual period, and over that annual period, if the employee has over 30 hours, you should be offering coverage. And again, the iSolve system has this built-in reporting that will enable you to identify those employees prior to your open enrollment each year. The key things in terms of if you're not currently doing this reporting is there's a company level 1094. I think many people are familiar with that. And then the employee level 1095 form. The employee mandate is in effect for 2018. ACA, I think a lot of people have heard a lot of stuff in the news. It will probably be next year a lot more information in the news regarding changes. But The repeal of the individual mandate is starting for 2019, not for 2018. So, sorry. If you have a self-insured funding arrangement with your plans, you are essentially, as an employer, the insurance company. And the insurance companies have to report who's covered by insurance. And for self-employed companies that have less than 50 employees, they have to also file. It's a different form for the employee, a 1095B and a 1094B for the employer filing. If you are self-insured and over 50, technically you would have to give two forms. The IRS says if you're in that situation, the 1094C with Section 3 of covered insured dependents substitutes from having to do two forms. So we have many clients who have different types of funding arrangements. We code the system if it's a self-insured plan. So there are some other terminology that is used by the insurance companies, and it's always good to check to make sure that if you have like a partial funding or other descriptions, to make sure we have that coded properly for you. So again, all 50 plus must file. I put this slide up first because for employers who are less than 50, you know that, you're confident, you can kind of be in that mindfulness zone for the next few slides. So what's new for 2018? Last month, we anxiously awaited for the final forms in the IRS instructions. Did a comparison to the instructions last year and this year, and the instructions essentially are the same. And as a result, there is just a few things I would say that you want to maybe be aware of. First off, the penalties go up each year. Last year is $260 if you fail to give the employee 1094 form timely. This year it's $270. Likewise, if you don't file with the IRS timely, there's an associated penalty of $270. So ignoring ACA can be pretty expensive, $540 per employee. So you want to really make sure if you're not required to file, so you don't incur those penalties. And the IRS granted a nice cap of $3 million or so. So it can add up. And if you're over $3 million, then you don't have to worry in terms of additional penalties. The final release date for iSolved is December 14th. There could be some system-related changes that come up in that release. We'll notify you if there is something required to be done differently. But the good news is essentially you have an automated system. If you maintain your employee data throughout the year, it should go pretty well. There is a little bit of change to the employee form. Last year, the name box was kind of one box. The IRS threw out a lot of errors called TIN errors in previous years if the name didn't match exactly what the Social Security Administration had on file. In an attempt to try to reduce those errors, they broke the name field into first name, middle initial, last name. That's mostly visible on the electronic files we send and the errors that we might get when we send those electronic files. But when you see the employees form, you'll see those three little boxes now. Also, addresses are required. It will cause an error when we upload a file to the IRS. If you're missing a zip code, we have to fix that and retransmit a file. And so a few of the errors we were getting last few years were some employees have foreign addresses. The IRS now will recognize foreign addresses. So here it is, our deadlines. If you want us to set up compliance services for you this year, please notify us by the 1st of December. We've had clients that have notified us that they should have done ACA compliance for the last 3 years, and we can work with and file electronically prior years. We can file, and the IRS will accept late transmissions, but to get it so we have you set up and are timely with employee distribution of forms, if you could let us know by December 1st if you want us to set up that service for you. For our existing clients, we're asking for the forms to be approved by January 4th. That weekend, we would start looking for those companies and generating the forms, and we'll continue to do scans throughout the period right up until that January 31st due date. The electronic filing date is April 1st. Sometimes you get the employee forms, you find errors. That second date is real important because then if you can notify us, we make a correction, we get an electronic filing, and you can give the employee a corrected form. So this is a slide we've used actually for the last 3 years, kind of a mindfulness representation. And we wanted just to share a few of the basics that we share each year. What can you do now? Looking at your employee data to make sure you have complete information. The most important 3 items are on the next 3 slides. Your employment categories. If you have an employee coded as full-time and they're not really full-time, they're going to get a form if they weren't offered coverage and they went out to exchange, got a premium tax credit, you could incur a penalty because of bad data. So you want to make sure you have the accurate employment categories for your full-time and part-time employees. You want to look at your enrollment data in the system. It's fully automated to generate the forms, but it's fully automated looking at benefits enrollment data. So if your plan year is in the middle of the calendar year, you have to have an enrollment representing the first part of the year, a second updated enrollment for the second part of the year, and it should represent the correct dates. And you can go in at any point and adjust that information prior to us processing forms. The other is verifying your hire, rehire dates. We have some employers that have remote offices. They don't always know when an employee actually terminated. Sooner or later, someone says, oh yeah, by the way, they haven't worked any hours for a long time. You can go ahead and terminate those employees. So you want to make sure you have the correct termination dates. If the employee's terminated, again, went out to the exchange, took a premium tax credit, and they weren't an employee, but you're showing them as an employee, you incur a penalty. For the self-employed plans, in addition, there's Part 3 on the 1095 for covered individuals. You need to make sure that within iSolved, you update employee contacts for the dependents and attach those dependents to the enrollments. So you have a complete form. So, screen is cutting off. The key date, January 4th. The process to approve forms. If you do nothing, you'll get nothing. We'll probably be calling you up saying, have you approved the forms? You need help. We get real excited on the benefits team when a client pushes the button. We call it pushing the button. And, excuse me. So that approve forms, as soon as you click that button, it will date stamp who approved it in your organization. And we now keep a history of those. So let's say you approve, and of course, 10 minutes later, you find something, you've been going through your forms and you find an error. We can unapprove that. You can go in, make a correction, and we can reapprove it. We don't immediately start printing forms when you do that approval. The screen example shows the year 2017. It should come up when you go into the approval screen defaulting to 2018. If you don't see 2018, let us know. We just need to make a little adjustment. So each year there's been some enhancements to support ACA processing. 2015 was pretty much a learning experience for all of us with the first ACA. There were all these codes that were not really easy to understand how they were generated. And there was also a lot of confusion in how to review your information. If you printed out all the forms for the employees, it's very cumbersome. So in 2016, the Solve development team added a preview report, which is just an easier way to review your data than looking at the IRS forms. And it also did some validation. If employees have missing social security numbers, it gave you an error. If the address was incomplete, it gave you an error. Information like that. That made the process go a lot better. Last year the system big enhancement was to include ACA forms as paper electronic forms, and that had a tremendous impact in terms of enabling us to process more efficiently. But also, I think from an employee's standpoint, a lot of employees get the forms that they're pitching them, but then maybe later they need to see them, and they can see them at any point through self-service, like their W-2s electronically. And we are going to, again, encourage you as an employer to go with the electronic, encourage employees to opt in for the electronic filing. You'll save some postage from the company, but really the handling, that's a big thing. Also, last year, we added on the external side of the forms, the organization data. So if you are a large company and you break down the forms, you want to distribute it by department or not mail them out, you'll be able to do that. Some of our packages that we wrap up have multiple rubber band groups of employees, and it was like, well, what do you do with all this? How do you organize it? And hand sorting, it wasn't very friendly to do that. For this year, because there really isn't significant changes, we did have just a minor enhancement to the overrides. We have a few employers that have very unique benefit plans, how they calculate the employee cost. And as a result, they go into the system and do overrides for those employees. It's just an efficient scenario. Or sometimes you're almost done, you got just one correction, one code you want to fix for 1 month for one employee. The override screen lets you go right in there, put in that change, it saves it in the employee's record. And we sometimes, when we're down to the wire, are saying, why don't you just do that? That might be easier than doing other employee maintenance. So each year, what we try to do to prepare for ACA is try to identify employers who may have grown over 50 to try to make sure they have ACA covered. We do this, it's not intended to sell service, but to avoid having a client call us up and say, boy, we should have done this. Why didn't you tell us? And we also we'll distribute to you. Last year, I think we gave out paper copies of the IRS instructions. We'll be creating a ticket outbound. We'll give you the new instructions. It's pretty easy to search Google and find them on IRS, but we'll provide those. Plus, we have a little guide that can be used to kind of just checklist walk you through what you should be doing to review the employee data. Okay, so really of the next steps is start previewing your forms. They're available. You'll see 2018. They'll look exactly like the forms will look at that will be generated after you approve the forms. So just to kind of recap, main takeaways, December 1st, let us know if you need it to be set up. You didn't have the service set up previously. By January 4th, we're asking you to push the button and by January 31st to make sure you distribute the forms to employees or have them postmarked. By April 1st, we do the final batch of clients that we will be filing electronically. Review your instructions, verify your data is updated in iSolved, and watch for a ticket from us on updates. And in that realm, last year at this time, we were saying the same dates, but it turned out that the IRS basically an automatic extension of 30 days. So that will be one of the things that we'll be watching for and advising you. If we have that extension for 30 days, you pretty much have an extra month to enjoy reviewing your ACA forms, or you can approve them right away. The enforcement action that if you fail to file, last year at this time I was saying, well, you should be starting to see notices from the IRS for errors, employer shared responsibility payments for the filing year 2015. It took the IRS a while to get those going. They spent almost an entire year getting out the 2015 notices, and on I think it was Tuesday, we had a new client was using another service for the tax year 2016, and they got a notice and were a little panicked because it was about a $500,000 employer shared responsibility payment, and they weren't comfortable that their prior service did what they needed to do. So the reason I bring that up as an example is you probably want to alert whoever gets your IRS mail to watch for these notices. Even if you filed, you might have somebody who went up and claimed a premium tax credit. You may have to go, as a result, provide information that you offered affordable coverage and so forth. The notice is called Letter 226J, and there's a few post presentation add-ons kind of describing the process, what to do if you receive a 226J. The first and most important step is look at the response date, and it generally is going to say it's 30 days, and my recommendation to everybody is call the IRS and ask for an extension and get an additional 30 days, because typically it's going to require time to review your data and to prepare the best response so you don't incur or pay employer shared responsibility payments more than you have to. The IRS takes advice from the IRPAC, the Information Reporting Advisory Committee. It's sort of like the NFL owners giving advice to the NFL league. They have a lot of influence, and for the last, probably even before ACA, they have given advice to the IRS that the time allowed should be extended. And last year, the notification from the IRS back was on December 22nd, sort of like a Christmas present saying you get an extra 30 days. So we won't know until next month whether or not January 4th is the date or if you have an extra 30 days. IRPAC also recommended that good faith effort be penalty relief be extended, so that $570 per employee form penalty. If you did pretty good on most of your forms and can substantiate that you had good faith effort to file accurately, you should not incur a penalty. And that's another recommendation, but it's as of right now, you could be subject to a penalty. In 2019, the individual responsibility penalty goes down to 0 for employees. What does that mean? The IRPAC is suggesting there be a simplification. Will the 1095 form go away? Don't know. but the employer detail will still be required, so there'll still be compliance on the employer side. Employee side, possibly not. If for some reason the IRS does not extend an automatic extension, and you know you're going to have trouble meeting the January 31st date, you can do a Form 8809. Whoever is designated with your IRS as an authorized contact can go online, fill that form out. It's very simple. It's probably a 15-minute form. That will allow you to get a 30-day extension. If an overall extension is granted to all employers, you cannot add this on in addition to that. So, but if you are struggling and you want to be safe, you need to file the 8809 prior to the due date. So I mentioned that we have designated benefits specialists. If you send a question into this, our payroll service, they'll route it over to our benefits team. If you send it direct to the benefits team, our system will route it to your assigned benefits specialist for follow-up. It gets a little hectic for us, and we try to respond daily, but as we get down into the January 10th, 11th, 12th, it may take us a few days to respond. So we'll probably acknowledge we got your request, but if we have to do some researching, it may take us a few days to respond. So I have there's some links for some additional resources. And after last year, we referred to that we were recording some instructional videos. These are going to be available for you. They are 5-minute quickies. We didn't go into detail, okay, here's how you do things step by step, because back in the room there, Ashley recorded these for us last year, and they're really good. They don't take much time. It's just like kind of gets you into the mood, into the process. The last video is from our technical partner, iSolved, and it gives a little more in-depth review of the reporting that's available for you. It's about 20 minutes, not real time-consuming. So we have an extra segment as part of the presentation that will be posted, but I'm at my time.